Hey, welcome back to part 2 of Kristen Lascola's interview, who is the one who's created, along with her husband Jeff, Ministry Coach, which is coaching the coachless in student ministries. She has all kinds of amazing tips and things on her podcast and on her YouTube channel. So make sure you listen, because we're going to start off with something special. Her and Jeff's love story. Welcome to Youth Worker on Fire.
Today's youth need teachers, volunteers, and most of all, well, they need you. I'm Doug Edwards, and I'm going to be talking with real youth mentors and students to give you the knowledge you need to be the best youth worker possible. This is Youth Worker on Fire.
Oh, you're trying to bring me down and run me out of town. You're taking what you want, but you can't take my rhythm now. I'm walking to my own beat, just gonna be me. I'm not replicating nobody.
Tell me about your love story, if you don't mind, you and Jeff.
Had originally met through some friends. So I was actually in a relationship, and the person I was dating, Jeff, was his friend. And so, I just got to know him, and I always thought, oh, he's a fun guy, and it was funny because one of my best friends from childhood actually had a sign language class with him at like a community college. And that's how I met all of them in the first place. And so she just knew two guys, Jeff and the one I ended up dating. She set me up with the wrong guy. And so I dated that guy, got to know Jeff, and he had said, hey, my friend tells me you run a youth ministry. I've always wanted to be a youth volunteer. Could you use a small group leader? I'm like, yeah, you should come. Just check it out. And so he came and started volunteering, and he started leading a small group and started leading worship for us and giving the kids guitar lessons. And he just ended up being one of those super volunteers. Like, he was at every camp, every event, every youth group. The kids loved him. They used to call him Daughtry, who was the singer, and it looked just like Jeff.
Yeah, I remember Daughtry.
Yeah, they just loved him. And so this whole time we're developing a friendship, and my other relationship did not work out. And I remember trying to set Jeff up with my sister. I tried to set him up with my friends. I tried to set him up with all these people.
It just wasn't taking. What is wrong with this guy? So,
and I'm like, man, he's such a catch. But this was when I was in a relationship, so I didn't even think of myself. I was like telling my sister, oh, Jeff's such a great guy. And it just wasn't a fit. And my friend was like, oh, Jeff, is he still single? Maybe put in a good word for me. And so I tried all these things. And then one day I find myself single, and I had this epiphany, it's me. It's me. Because I had been praying and praying and praying for him, because Jeff he's 7 years older than me. And I was just like, man, we got to get this guy married. He's such a catch. These girls are missing out. And then when I was finally single, this light bulb went off of it was supposed to be me. So, anyways, we started hanging out, and it was pretty clear pretty quick that that friendship that we had been building for 5 years was turning into a relationship. And I mean, man, I won the lottery. That's how I feel. He is we're very, I don't know. There's a connection there, and he's just the best. So he's such a good dad. He ended up having to leave my ministry once we had kids, because it was too hard with childcare and both of us being gone and, all of that. So he stopped volunteering with me when our first daughter was 2. We just realized it's just not the season for it. But that was a fun time getting to do ministry together. We still have pictures from all the camps and events together. And he was a crack up, made all the kids laugh. He's so funny. And just getting to do ministry together was a really cool time in our relationship. But now we're doing ministry together in a different sense of, like the ministry coach, YouTube and podcasts and stuff, like getting to do ministry together again after all these years is like, we work really well together. A lot of people say, I could never work with my spouse. Like we'd kill each other. And I am always like, I could totally work with Jeff. We do work together. And you know what I think it is? I think neither one of us are feelers. And so it's really hard to get either one of our feelings hurt. And so we just sort of move on. And like, it doesn't, I don't think we've ever fought over work ever. So not that we haven't ever fought, but over work, I don't know. We just have chemistry there. So it's been a lot of fun.
Well, yes. I mean, that's what, once I saw you guys together, that was the first thing I saw. Was I didn't even see any of your solo work. I saw you and Jeff doing your thing.
Yeah.
And you guys played off of each other so well. And you referred somewhere in, I don't know, I've listened to so much stuff, saw so much stuff, because I do this when someone that I don't know well, I try to find everything I can find just to be able to talk and see where you're coming from. And you said somewhere that this was your best friend. That you married your best friend.
Down.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that is like kind of cliche, people say that. But yeah, I think because we built our relationship on a friendship, whether we meant to or not, I never foresaw him being like the guy for me because I wasn't thinking of him in that way. We were just going about our business being friends. And so then I really did end up marrying one of my best friends because he was, and we just, we get along super well. And the cool thing with Jeff is that, like, speaking of like women in leadership and women in ministry, his ego is just not like, he never feels like he's in competition with me. He platforms me. He's my cheerleader. I think he's my biggest fan. I think I'm just his favorite person. And so every time I succeed or do well, he's applauding. Like he doesn't feel intimidated or jealous or like, if you shine, then I don't. Like, there's no competition. Like, he's always pushing me forward. The whole ministry coach thing is his idea. That's the only reason we're doing it. I was like, nah. And he's like, no, you're so good. You've got to do this. People need to hear. What if you were that age, wouldn't you want someone to tell you? And so I think he's always pushing me to be better, which is so nice that, there's not the friction of competition or insecurity or ego. And I think, that is just why we have the interactions we do, because I don't think he wants to be me or have what I have, and I don't want to be him or have what he has, but our things complement each other. Our gifts and talents and interests are very complementary. And he's so humble, that pride piece, like, sometimes working with people in ministry is hard. That pride and ego just like gets in the way of so much what could be great relationship. And Jeff doesn't have a ego problem, and I'm very thankful for that.
No, for sure. And if anyone, when you get to watch their videos on YouTube, it's very apparent. And he draws things out of you, and you guys banter back and forth too, and which is really fun because that's part of communication. It's not just all information; it's the communication that makes you guys real, that makes people go, "Okay, I can do that, or I can do this," and that was a good, and it's fun to watch. We do that with students, right?
Yeah.
And adults are really not any different than students. They just say they are. We all want to be entertained when we're spoken to.
Absolutely. I 100% agree.
Yeah, well, I know you will, because I watched you and I'm going, she is exactly what I would want to be if I was her as a youth worker, youth pastor. I'm going, I've got to interview this person. So, yeah, man, listen, it's all you and all Jeff. And so there's one thing, and I don't even remember all the context, but you compared The Crown. I think you were watching The Crown, and you were talking about Queen Elizabeth's leadership and how she came into power, things like that. And by the way, Barack Obama, Barack, I just want to call him Barack. So, Barack, you referred to him as the one reason that you really liked him was because he didn't seem to have an ego.
Yeah.
And I thought, once you said that about Jeff, I'm going, because she's relating this with Jeff. She feels the same thing going on. There. That's right. No wonder she likes this guy. So anyway, talk about the Crown a little bit, because you said some very significant things about leadership, about I don't even remember it all. I just remember it being so good. So what do you remember from that if you were to draw two things out of it, or one?
Yeah, I can.
And you can go listen to this, by the way. It's just go look at our videos. We'll find the one on the Crown.
Yeah, and even if you're not a Crown fan, I wasn't for a while. I think you can still draw out the leadership principles, but
I was not. I'm not a Crown fan. Did not watch it, but I understood everything you were talking about, because I do know the royalty, and personally they'd call me often. But anyway, no, not at all. But everybody, if you've lived or breathed it all or watched any kind of media, you've seen. So go ahead. Go from there.
Yeah. And I've learned even more as the season has progressed. I'm only in season 1. And I mean, I'm just soaking in these leadership principles from her of just... I think one big thing I saw, like in her interaction with Winston Churchill, was the power of restoration and leadership and the power of a second chance. I had no clue Winston was a little weaselly sometimes. And he, we hear Winston Churchill and it's such a revered name, but watching the humanity behind it and to see like, there was ego and there was weakness, and the dance the two of them do with his ego and her leadership and his deception and her forgiveness and his need for restoration and extension of mercy by her. I just feel like that dance is very interesting when you see leadership, because he was a little deceptive and kind of held his leadership with like white knuckles and didn't want to let go of his role. And she was very gracious to him. And I just think as leaders, that wisdom to know when is it time for someone to depart, but also when is it time for a second chance and restoration. And I think that's what I loved watching her do with Winston, is they both knew he had messed up, and she gave him mercy, didn't mention it, but they both knew, and let him continue on his way. And I thought that showed a lot of wisdom and mercy. And then just the way she cared for her family too. Her husband, struggled a little more than Jeff did with the leadership position that she was in, and he lost a lot. I don't blame him. He had to renounce his country and his nationality, his identity. And there was a lot of things he was restricted on. And, there's all these scenes of like, are you my wife or my queen? And she's like, I'm both. And right now I'm your queen. And it's like, like what a complicated marriage that must have been.
Yeah, sure.
But when she had the opportunity to defend him and protect his rights to do what he wanted to do, she put him first and his needs and his humanity first. And I just loved watching that, of like, those of us in ministry, how are we protecting our families from our position, that like, well, where does the position end? And sometimes it's like, we're so busy and we're in a season where it's like, you're going to get me, but you're not going to get all of me all the time. And it's going to be for a season. You can't continue like that forever, or that's not healthy. But then where are we protecting our family from the ministry to say, like, your needs are important, your needs are a priority, and just because I work at a church doesn't mean you work at a church, and that you have to, I think that's a mistake that churches make if they see spouses as a package deal, and they're
Yes.
not.
Yeah.
You're called into ministry. Your husband or wife is not, and they need to have the freedom to live their life. And that's what her husband needed. He needed the freedom to pursue his own interests, pursue his own hobbies, pursue his own identity apart from the crown and apart from her. And our spouses need that same thing. They need not to be known as the pastor's wife or the pastor's husband, or, oh, well, they'll do it because, we need someone to fill this position or this role. Oh, they'll do it because you guys are. No, it's like they don't work here. So no, they won't. They have their own job. I think we need to protect them from that pressure and expectation. But yeah, it's brilliant. Like when you see it through the lens of leadership, it's a brilliant show, and a lot more complex and dramatic than I thought it would be. So
I got that from just what you were saying in that segment. The one thing I said when we came to this church, once again, we were kind of militant. We've seen the good, the bad, the ugly growing up in church and different things like that, and what happened to pastors' kids, and more bad than good, and determined our kids, when we had kids, weren't going to do that. But the one thing I said, because we didn't care if we had the job, it was a great way. It's a great way for anyone to go into a job, not caring and just going, I'm here because God's got me here. You didn't hire me. I'm coming. You want me, but I'm coming because, which I don't think it's ever happened since or before with me, but it was that particular time. And so she came in and I said, by the way, before we say yes, you're not hiring her. You're hiring me. She has a lot of talent. She'll do what she wants if she wants to, but you have to agree with me. She's not on your staff. And she did end up doing a lot. She was my best volunteer until after kid number 2. Once we got to kid number 3, she still did some. Doug Fields, I don't know if you remember Doug Fields. The whole world seems to know Doug Fields, And I had been to Saddleback and listened to some of his stuff, and he had been back and forth. He didn't know me. But anyway, I invaded his premises. But anyway, the one thing he said was my wife was my best volunteer. And then he went through a series of things. And he said, until. She was still good, but we finally said, you need to retire. You take care of the kids. It's too much. And the same with my wife there finally. It was just too much. And it wasn't fair to the kids, which brings me to your children. I remember you have some great things on there. People are going to be so educated by watching your stuff and listening to your interactions. You said your girls were out with their friends and one of your friends, and the mom said to one of your girls, your mom is so funny. Is she that way all the time? So go ahead and you take us from there. Kristen, talk to me. Tell me what you said, and let's talk about your kids.
She's the sweetest person I know, and she doesn't lie. So she was going to tell the truth. It was, she just said, well, not to be mean, but, and it would kind of like we all just started laughing at that point because I'm not like always the like carefree, fun youth pastor at home. It's sometimes we're just doing normal family stuff. The good thing is I have kids who absolutely love church. My kids like can't get enough. So if I have to go to church 3 services a weekend, they want to attend all 3 services. I don't make them. I don't ask them to. And that's such a blessing for us to be able to raise our kids at North Coast, because it's like, man, you guys love being here. It's not a chore or a drag, or, you feel like, oh, my mom's always there, because you're always there too. You want to be there. That's where all your friends and community are. And they do such a good job in the children's ministry. And the coolest thing is my daughter, even though, I'm not always like the youth pastor at home, she said she's in 4th grade now. My oldest one's in 4th grade. And then I have a 4-year-old who's in preschool. And the fourth grader said, well, you're still gonna be a junior high pastor when I'm in junior high, right? Like, I want you to be my pastor. And I'm like,
Oh,
really?
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
And
Biggest
I'm like, I don't know.
compliment. Biggest compliment.
It is, but I don't know if you'll feel that way when you're in middle school. I might embarrass you because
Exactly. Yes.
when I unleash in that youth ministry context, like all bets are off. Like I turn into an absolute kook, And so, hopefully I don't embarrass her too much. But yeah, she's excited for that. And I'm excited to have her. It's just so weird to think we're only 2 years away from that, of her being one of my official students. It just doesn't feel like that could be real,
Yes, I do know. And listen, my oldest son, he edits these for me, by the way. He's a music artist and has a sync agent out in LA and all these things. He's so good at some of those things. But he and his brother after him, I would say, and we let him do a lot of things. That's why he's in music. We push some of that for him. But I would say to my volunteer staff, these are not my boys. These are my daughters. They're yours. You're their pastor when they come in. I need to know that you're going to engage them, not me. I need to know that you are going to, and I would tell my volunteers, listen, you are pastors to the ones that you most engage with. They can call me, they can put the title on me, but you are pastor.
It's true.
And make sure you do it to my kids. And they did. My volunteers did. They did a very good job of it. And my children, I love to hear what you're saying about your girls, because my first, I'm laughing because my first two, they felt that way all the way through. And if you go to episode 100, I saved that for my son, and he is on 100. You'll be able to hear about his life with us and those things and what some of those things that went on. And we want the other two to be on. We just haven't worked it out yet. But my daughter, very difficult. It was great until mid-junior high, then all the way through after that, because she graduated her senior year, and that was our end here, as far as that particular church. Which was a good time to get out if you had to. And so it's very good for me to hear. People need to hear who the people that are listening that have children or before they have children and hear you saying some of these things. And I like your reaction of, I don't know if you're going to like it, because you need to think that way, because you need to be thinking, okay, what will it be like? Because in middle school, all bets are off, not just with you, but with their personalities.
Yeah.
You don't know what they're going to be yet,
I know. And I'm sure I'll have a ton of content when she actually moves into middle school, because it'll be this whole new thing of parenting that we're learning and walking through and all of that. I mean, even now, like sometimes she'll come with me, like I'm taking kids to the beach and she wants to come along. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like the things they're talking about, like they're not bad, but I'm just like, oh, I don't want you hanging out right now. Like you shouldn't be with junior hires, and she's always begging to come and wants to be a part of it. I'm like, nope. You're not ready to hang out with middle schoolers.
How old is she right now?
She's only 9.
She's only 9. Right. Yeah. We stopped them from going, I think their 5th grade year, because we wanted to give them a break. I mean, we didn't take them to everything, but it is difficult. You're absolutely right. You don't want them to be too saturated with how much fun it really is, because what if that year it's not the most fun year?
Hate to disappoint you, but
this is the down year. Sorry, next year maybe it'll be up again, right? And only people who've been in for a while know that is true. There will be, and you've already said that, up and down years, and you talked about that.
Yeah, there will be.
So let's see. Let me make sure that I've covered a few things here. Tell me about your heart. Tell me what the biggest thing. First, tell me this. Tell me about something that nobody knows or people aren't even asking about you, but it's really a fun thing or a great thing about you, or something that you and Jeff have done, or just you on your own, whether it was before or after or during. marriage, ministry, blah, blah, blah. What's that one thing?
I think, man, it sounds so weird. One of my absolute passions in life is I'm obsessed with dachshunds. Like wiener dogs are
The
my life. So
dogs.
I just, very few things, and this is true, I'm not exaggerating. I cannot describe how much joy a dachshund, a wiener dog, whatever you call them, brings me. So like that is like my whole other identity. Like I have a company where I sell dachshund shirts. I go to dachshund races.
No.
Anyone
That's
who has
amazing.
a dachshund, I stop them. Every report I ever did growing up was about dachshunds. I own movies about dachshunds. Everything has dachshund logos on it. That is kind of my other life other than youth ministry is you can find me with dachshund people at dachshund festivals, at dachshund races.
Goodness. That is amazing. That is the sort of, that's great. Keep going. I want to hear more. Keep going. How many dachshunds do you have at your house?
So right now I only have one, and she is just, can't even describe. I can't even look at her because I'm like, you're too cute. I'm going to explode. But she's my BFF, and I'm a part of some different dachshund community things, and
You've tried to keep it quiet, but now it's out. The whole world's going to know now.
Other than youth ministry, I have two passions, and it's dachshunds, and I'm obsessed with really good vegan food. Any vegan festival, food festival, I'll try every vegan restaurant in San Diego and Orange County. Always on the hunt for the new best vegan things. I have a heart condition, and I was not doing well for a while, and I've then switched over to a plant-based vegan diet, and I feel so much better. But I love food, so I'm always looking for like the best vegan everything. So dachshunds and vegan stuff is what I would do in my free time, and ride my bike. I'm obsessed with bike rides. Being in San Diego, we have a lot of good places to go. So those are my passions other than youth ministry.
Well, just last night I heard your episode on your heart. And we're going to talk about that. Tell me about, see, now you sound like now this is just, please forgive us. This is the East Coast, all right? That's what we think of California. Every girl is a vegan,
Yep.
California, right?
I knew it.
But sounds like you were not before that. Before your heart
it's only been 4 years. It was just 4 years. And I remember hearing this thing about the blue zones on the Today Show one time. I was just getting ready and the Today Show was on, and they had this guy named Dan Buettner who wrote the book, The Blue Zone Solution, studied people living to 100. They live in blue zones, studied their lifestyle and dietary habits, and they're all plant-based, and talking about how good they feel, how long they live, disease-free, all that stuff. And I'm like, what do I have to lose? It's not like medication. It's just a lifestyle.
Right.
So one New Year's, I'm like, I'm going plant-based. And I did. And I'm like, what? I could have felt this way this whole time. And for me, it was how I felt on like my cardiovascular level. It was a game changer for me. So, but people always think if you go vegan, you're giving up good food. And I was like, well, that's not going to happen to me. And so I'm always cooking up something elaborate or trying something new. I'm pretty passionate about food, and now having to relearn how to cook and do things has been super fun.
Well, and last night I really wasn't going to look up hardly any of your stuff, and then I got obsessed looking at going, okay, I got some questions here. And so when I saw that part about your heart, because I'm a heart patient.
Oh, okay.
This is my 20th year, and it was student ministry. I was pushing every button. I was developed a program. The church let me do it. That it took me 3 years to develop. It took a year to process and get and doing the school systems. And it was called Sold Out. It was like basically a the whole phrase is steroids. It was like one of the events that my trainer had created up in Michigan, and I put it on steroids, maximized it. And we did these things, and we were in assemblies in public schools and all kinds of stuff. But I kept having heart issues. And so when I kept feeling it, I'd go in once a year for heart pains, and I would go in and they would say, man, we wish you had your arteries are wide open. There's nothing wrong. I go in the next year, do the same thing. My heart's hurting, my head, chest is hurting. What is it? Put me on the treadmill, check me out. Nope, arteries wide open. There's nothing. Well, they didn't check for syncopes or AFib or any of that. So a year after, I wasn't able to get the rest that I needed because they give us a sabbatical every 5 years. I never heard of that. And I've written a book that's unpublished on that because I know what it feels like to have 3 months of sabbatical every 5 years. And so there's a system that happens with you no matter what you do with it. And so a year later, after all those events, I passed out. My wife found me and scary. Went to my doctor, thought I had the flu. I said, well, I passed out when I had the flu when I was 15. He said, you had a heart problem then. I said, what? And so went to the cardiologist, did my first heart cath, and there you go. He said, he's had a heart attack. We can't believe it. Because they'll work out the whole bit. Yours was different. Here you are. You have an enlarged heart. Tell me about that. You do an incredible devotional on it. That is just amazing. Everyone needs to go look that up on the video. Tell me about did he know what it came from? Or was it something that it just didn't matter? It was just going to be there.
Yeah, it's just going to be there. So it's genetic, and it's just like a 1 in 50 chance that your children will get it. So my children have been checked since the time they were in utero, pretty much.
Exactly.
If they have it or not.
Because you said 7 years ago from that time is when that process started?
I had surgery in 2016, but I was diagnosed with it when I was 16. I was a cheerleader, and so we have to just get these routine physicals, and the trainer was kind of like, I don't know, your heart sounds weird. So then I went to my doctor, and he's like, oh, wow, something is weird. And so we did all these tests, and it's called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. It's like athlete's heart or an enlarged heart muscle, and untreated. That's why those athletes, some of them just drop dead on the court. It's called sudden death syndrome. And so luckily they caught it, and I had to quit cheer, but they just medicated me, and I felt pretty good for a while. And then all of a sudden I just didn't feel good anymore. I had chest pains doing the smallest things of walking up the stairs. So it had progressed, and my mom had it. So that's where I got it from. So they tried a surgery, and it was successful, but I didn't feel 100%. I felt like 60%. And I was like, I don't know. I'm not happy, because I thought I would feel like I could do anything and I'd feel better. And I love riding my bike, and I love being active, and I couldn't do anything. And then
thus you're good with middle school students.
Yeah. I mean, and I couldn't keep up with them.
Constant action. Right.
Yeah, I missed out on a lot of stuff. We went to camp, and I couldn't go on the hikes. I couldn't whitewater raft with them. I couldn't play the games with them anymore. I couldn't do anything because I was in so much pain. But I prayed and prayed and prayed, God, find me a solution like this. I can't live like this. And I feel like it was totally a God thing leading me. I would have never in my life thought a plant-based diet would have done the trick, because it's genetic. It's not like I developed something over time, but the way that it allows your arteries to dilate and relax and for blood to flow, it totally knocked out my chest pain. Because the animal products for me were constricting my arteries. And so every time I would eat, my chest would get so tight. And anyways, I was couldn't believe it. So it did affect my ministry, I remember going to summer camp with the kids, and one of the leaders had to put me on his back and give me a piggyback ride up this hill, because I'm like, I have to go back to the car. I can't get up this hill.
Yeah.
He's like, get on my back. We can do this.
We can do it. We can do it.
But it was embarrassing, like so embarrassing. I don't want to have to slow anyone down or be the one who like needs the special attention or anything. So it was sort of like couple years there where it was pretty, like we went to Israel on this tour and I couldn't keep up, you know?
Yeah.
And here I am young and I look healthy. I'm not in a wheelchair or anything, but I couldn't keep up. And I was like humiliated all the time of like, okay, you guys go on ahead. I'll be right there. You know,
they knew what you're going through though, I'm sure.
They did. And they were compassionate, but it also was like a group of men. Like, what are they going to do? Be like, oh, Kristen, it's okay. Like they kind of just like,
okay, see you.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And it's not like they were rude, but it just was totally, I just felt so alone, you know, it was so embarrassing and isolating and all of that. So it was hard, but God got me through. And man, I don't know if I hadn't found out that plant-based could change the way you feel. It's not just like your future health, but man, I feel like I'm 18, you know, I feel so good. I'm so happy.
That's good. Since you're 21, that's right. And
yes.
Right now, and so, but you feel 19, you know, or 18.
I do. 18. I feel great.
No, that's good. And I'll tell you, youth workers need to hear this. How many times have we seen youth workers that are just out of shape, horrible diet? In fact, we thank God for pizza because pizza obviously is a God food. And, you know, for every event, you got pizza and chips and burgers and
ice cream, donuts,
and you're
cookies,
so hungry probably from running around, and so you shove something in your mouth. And but we've seen so many unhealthy people that they think nothing can happen to them. But we dug through as well. We didn't lose a beat. We were still doing high altitude Colorado once a year, and still low altitude because we're in the sand down here. So we'd take kids to mountains, you know, a couple times a year, middle schoolers up on the East Coast mountains. Is there somebody in your life other than your parents that just kind of like flipped your switch for Jesus, or it doesn't have to be Christ, but anything that just kind of catapulted you where you are now, even if it was subtle, but there was that one person that was there someone like that?
Yeah, there was a couple, but I think when I first started, it was the girl who hired me first. I saw her at a coffee shop and I kind of knew her and she waved at me and, you know, we chatted briefly, but then she asked my sister, hey, would your sister ever want to be a small group leader for junior high? And my sister asked me, I'm like, I don't know, I guess. And I just checked it out, and watching her do ministry, like, I never knew, like I went to that church as a young kid, but seeing it now from an adult perspective and watching the way she interacted with students and the way the kids loved her and the way she poured into them and way she poured into the leaders, like it had an impact on me. I learned how to do ministry from her.
How old were you?
I think I was like 18, and she, you know, I honestly, if she hadn't asked me to be a small group leader, I was a Christian at the time. I wouldn't say I was like walking very strongly with the Lord. It was more cerebral at that point. Like I believed, and there was nothing that would have changed that belief, but my lifestyle wasn't totally matching my belief. And I think her pulling me to the center of the church and finding my purpose in church just propelled me in my relationship with God so much, because there's just something about going from sitting there and listening to being an active part of the church and finding your place there. And that's why I always encourage youth pastors, like, give your students opportunities to serve, you know, that like increases their capacity to grow in their faith, because they need a purpose. They're the church now. And I needed someone to pull me in and just keep me from being a person who shows up and leaves to being a person who's pulled to the middle and knows that they're gifted and have something to contribute to the body of Christ. I didn't know I had anything to contribute to the body of Christ. I thought other people worked at the church and other people did ministry, and I was just supposed to go and listen and leave. But she showed me that I had gifts I never knew I had. I didn't know I had leadership gifts. I didn't know I had teaching gifts. I didn't know I had any of those gifts with students or anything until she pretty much picked me up and placed me there. I would have never done that on my own.
Well, and where did you get your speaking skills and stuff? That is an excellent story, because people need to. I emphasize this almost every time. That it's an imperative that we know the stories of people who are in leadership, those people that cause these things to happen, that put this cause and effect in place, that caused an aha moment. So tell me about your speaking. You speak very well. I've heard you speak to in a few sessions online. Once again, available to everybody on YouTube, and your podcast. Who are you podcasting through? Are you through Libsyn? Are you with just Apple, or where does your podcast go through other than YouTube?
I don't know. Jeff.
Is Jeff in charge of that? Jeff's in charge of that. Right.
Yeah. I kind of just
they can figure it out. They got YouTube. They can figure the rest out. Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, listen, and that's what real leaders do, is they have people helping them so that they can show up and do what they do best.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I obviously we're on YouTube, and I think that's a way a lot of people have found us, is through YouTube. I just listen through my podcast platform on my phone if I ever need. I don't listen to us all the time, so I don't know. But Jeff, like, I show up, I'm like, my hair will be done and I'll have content, and you do the rest. And he does. So
yeah. Well, I never ever did my hair. I started off in the studio at Eustis High, and I'm go back and look at that going, my goodness, why am I on TV? What is that?
And I get kind of mad.
Good for you. You do your hair.
Exactly. I'm like, it would be a lot easier if we weren't on YouTube, because then I wouldn't have to do my hair. So,
well, I stopped. I'm on YouTube, but it's only as audio now. So I'm, anyway, that's good. You do your hair. That makes a difference. I can tell.
Yep.
So anyway, so you've got that there. How did you learn to speak the way you spoke? Were you always good a speaker?
Kind of. I mean, my dad, I think I kind of got that from him. So my dad is a college professor and does public speaking for a living. And my dad is very good at public speaking. And I've attended his classes here and there, or seen him give speeches or toasts, and people always ooh and ah at him, like, your dad is amazing at speeches. He can just captivate people. So it might be in our blood, but also I would say the first time I got up and gave a message, I still have those notes. It wasn't fantastic by any means, but I kept working at it and working at it and working at it, and taking direction and taking advice and learning from my mentors, people that would listen to my talks and write notes and then debrief it with me afterwards. And I kept trying to sharpen it. But I would say too, I do have a natural gift. Like when I was in college, I took a speech class, and all of my peers voted that for me that, that I was, like, I forget what the award was, but I was very good at public speaking. And so I think there is a natural element too. I think public speaking and then teaching the Bible, that intersecting for me, that did take a little while. Like, how do I formulate a message and communicate the gospel in the most effective way, even though I had a natural gift for presentation and public speaking and stage presence and all of that. But yeah, learning how to communicate the gospel effectively, I think that just came with a ton of practice and learning and honing the craft, like doing what you can to keep getting better. And I think that doesn't happen in a vacuum. If you're brand new, needing somebody to watch and listen and debrief and give you feedback, because you can't really make yourself better. Like, you can't be the source, you know what I mean? So yeah, those people that can move you from okay to good, and then good to great, and great to excellent. You need people along the way to move you.
Very, very good. That's, of course, not so good for people now that they know you're a natural communicator, but you work at it. And there's the thing. I know a lot of people that are amazing communicators. They were not natural at all, and they had to work at it like you did, except without any natural ability. But they became, you couldn't tell that it wasn't just a flow thing. You've been able to go through the cycles of students. You know what they are as adults now. You know which ones were affected in middle school. And here's what people don't understand is, and I tell people this too, middle schoolers you keep as your friends and you love them and respect them and share with them that you love them and you keep that relationship are your friends for life.
They really are.
And the ones that you make enemies might be your enemies for life.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's such, yes. So you attest to that too. Okay. Because you are in middle school. So tell me some of your success. I mean, you might go, it wasn't me, it was Jesus. I understand that. And that is true. It was Jesus, but he put us in our positions for people we didn't see coming. So tell me about a couple of what we would call success stories or stories that just came out of nowhere that you go, oh my gosh, I didn't know I did that. Thank you so much. Or something. I don't know. But I know they happened to you because you've been in long enough.
Yeah, I know. I had a pretty cool one happen this year. And it was actually from the husband of one of my former students. So she's grown up now and she's married and, has a job. I still see her. She still goes to our church. And her husband, said to me, he said, do you know why she is the woman she is today and why we have such a good marriage? And he said, it's because of you. And he goes, what you poured into her as a middle schooler and then that relationship, because I kept a relationship with her in high school and then she was like a college student. Now she's a young adult. And he goes, all the hard times she went through, she always reached out to you. And he goes, we wouldn't have the marriage we have today. She wouldn't have the relationship with God she has today if it hadn't been for your intentionality with her. And he's like, you never gave up on her. You were always there for her and you always showed her Jesus. And he goes, and as her husband now, like as a person who didn't even go to your youth group, he went to a different church growing up. I didn't know him until fairly recently. He's like, from someone from the outside looking in, he goes, I just want to thank you for all those years of you developing my wife into the person she is today, because now I get to have this marriage. And I told my leaders, I'm like, guys, do you realize what just happened? I'm like, you're affecting future marriages. Oh my gosh. Like, this is crazy, because she was this kid who was like so quiet, wouldn't look at anyone, was always looking at the floor. And I would always like just lovey-dove all over her. Like, hey, I'm like, you should come to youth group. You would love it. Oh, I don't know. Okay, maybe. And I'm like, no, you would love it. I hope I'll see you on Tuesday. I'm going to see you on Tuesday, right? No, I don't know. Well, she finally came, became one of our leadership kids, joined our worship team because she has a beautiful singing voice. I got to baptize her. And it was just like this progression of just walking through life with kids. And that's why, again, this theme of like, stick around, because you'll see the fruit, and the fruit that takes the longest is usually the sweetest. And then getting to see, oh my gosh, when we're loving these 11, 12, 13, 14-year-olds, we're impacting their future spouse and their future marriage. And then, I mean, they're going to have kids someday. So then you think the kind of parents they're going to be. And it's because we pull, like, just like that girl, Holly, who brought me into ministry, pulling these kids into the center of the church of like, guys, you're not spectators, you're the church now, and pulling them in the middle of like, I'm going to keep you here. At our church, we call it a sticky church, meaning that people come, but they don't leave. And people start to form that identity. And man, I saw it so clearly when he said that. And that really touched me of like, and then, the leaders kind of went around and a lot of them, shared that of like, I'm here today because you were kind to me when I was in junior high, and they're adults now. It's my volunteer staff, and they were like, you were patient with me. You loved me. You always were excited to see me. You made me feel like I belonged. You made me feel important. You made me feel seen. And I think it's consistency, of just like treating, like you said, treating students like your friend and that you love them and all of that day after day, week after week, year after year, and showing them like, I love you when you're in my ministry, when you're out of my ministry, and into adulthood. Like, we're in this for life together, and I'll be here for you. There's just amazing fruit that comes from that.
That's exactly right. And listen, you have said it so well. And I just know that if the people that are listening to this podcast are not going to your podcast yet, they will be after hearing this. And they need to hear it from your perspective. No one has said it more clearly. And listen, I've got some great people on my podcast. They're people that were my students, just like you're talking about, that became my leaders and things like that. They're amazing. They've got some great things that they've said. But you are a youth pastor who has been there, who has felt this, who has done this. And I've seen a few great female youth pastors, because there's not that many, and some of the amazing things they've done. But you've said it so clearly that I believe there will be more youth workers coming out of this.
I hope so.
Youth pastors. I think that there will be more encouraged to stay in. I think there will be more seeing their students differently because of your words. And so, Kristen, I'm very thankful for you being here. But my grandkids have shown up now.
Well, thank you for having me.
I'm going to have to go see them.
And mine will be my kids will be walking through the door soon too. So
I know. I kept you. Listen, I told my wife. I said, she says, "Well, how long will you be?" I said, "Probably about 2 hours." What? I said, "Honey, we have stuff to talk about." And sure enough, it's 2 hours now. And so, but listen, I'm hoping that we'll be able to get together again. I'm hoping I get to talk to Jeff on another episode, or just talking. You guys, you have my phone number. You have ways to contact me. If you just need to talk because you need to talk, there's not many people in this world I talk to. And you know why. There are only a few people that you can talk to that will keep your stuff. And that was one of the things that I did with my staff. And I would say with my students, listen, you can tell me anything. You can talk to me. The only time that all bets are off, if it's life and death. If it's life and death, all bets are off. I'm sorry. I'm not going to keep your secrets. I'm not going to let somebody die or yourself. But other than that, you're going to know that when you talk to me, you've talked to someone who's going to listen and keep it. And so know that you guys can call. Not that you want to. Not that you don't have people already. I'm sure you do. But you're welcome. And thank you for this time. I'm just very grateful. Anything I can do for you, anything that people can pray for you about that are out here listening, anything that in closing?
The prayer I usually have every day, wisdom and common sense. I feel like I can never get enough of that. I want to navigate everything well, and I don't always have the answer. So for godly wisdom, common sense, and to make good decisions, I think I would always use prayer for that.
All right, Kristen, we're out, youth workers. You know how to get in touch with her on Ministry Coach, YouTube, and also, and it's Kristen Lascola, and her husband Jeff is on there as well. And so, any other way they need to contact you?
I have a lot of people reach out on Instagram. That seems like a preferred method of communication. You can DM me anytime, message me. It's my name, Kristen Lascola. We just started a Ministry Coach Instagram. I think Jeff's running that one, but if you go to me personally, I'll respond. But yeah, you can reach out that way or email ministry coach. And that email's in our show notes.
All righty, Kristen. Hey, you have a good afternoon. Tell your family hello from me and just tell Jeff thanks again.
All right. Thanks, Doug.
Hey, thanks again for staying with us and listening to this whole podcast, especially part 2 with Kristen Lascola. She's had so much value that she's given you in part 1 and part 2. Make sure that you write me and let me know what you thought of this episode at youthworkeronfire@gmail.com. That's youthworkeronfire@gmail.com. You guys have a great day. Keep reaching, keep growing, keep being all that God wants you to be. See you next time on Youth Worker on Fire.
You've been listening to the Youth Worker on Fire podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and tell your friends. Also, leave a comment and tell us what you think. Stay tuned for more informative episodes.